Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside Out Smile. I'm your host, Dr. Amber Q, and had a very strange experience early this morning. I'd gotten up to pray, and as the prayer is slightly earlier these days, to be honest, I hadn't actually gone to bed. I'll explain why. But I went to sleep after my pre-dawn prayer, and I suddenly realised I had a very, very sore throat, and I couldn't understand why. It was really intensely painful, and I was thinking, where has this come from? It took me ages to fall asleep. I mean, literally ages. And I have to admit that as I was falling asleep, I was thinking of all the Palestinians that aren't able to sleep because of everything that they're going through with this genocide. It's just horrific. But anyway, I mean, they're always on my mind. So I eventually fell asleep. And the next day, which is today, I was reading about a cloud plume of sulfur dioxide, which has moved across the UK and London in particular due to a volcanic eruption in Iceland. And of course we know that Mount Etna in Palermo erupted recently as well, didn't she? Because that was all over TikTok. I remember seeing Mount Etna years ago, and it was so interesting because she wasn't erupting at that time, but it was just fascinating seeing a volcano in the distance. One of my friends has actually cycled down a volcano in Hawaii. I'm not that adventurous, but it's just amazing, isn't it? Nature, the world, it's just simply incredible and amazing. Now, going from a volcanic plume to a fig tree. My parents have the most beautiful fig tree. You know, fig leaves are just gorgeous. In fact, I think you can crush fig leaves and use them as tea. I'm sure I've read about that. I'll need to check that out. Anyway, this fig tree is absolutely massive. We try and chop it down and to make it more manageable, but it just seems to grow. And it's so incredible seeing it in the winter when it's totally barren, just bare branches, and then seeing it grow and these beautiful leaves. And honestly, when I'm walking past, I feel just the aroma, the green leaves. We cut it back, they still kind of reach over the fence, and they're so beautiful. They look gorgeous. They kind of remind me of some sort of scene in Jurassic Park, but they also remind me of that movie with J-Lo. I think it was called Anaconda, and they're in the Amazon forest, and you've got all these leaves, and similar to, I guess, Jumanji, which is a totally different type of movie. But the point is, the leaves, oh my gosh, they smell gorgeous, they look gorgeous, just lovely and luscious. And then, of course, the figs are absolutely stunning. They're so tasty. I can't believe that when I was very young, I used to be scared of figs because, of course, they're green or purple on the outside. And then when you sort of open them, they're just a beautiful red with a kind of a green rim. I mean, it's really incredible, just the texture, and they're so good for your health. They're actually mentioned in the Holy Quran, so they are a blessed fruit, and we love them. They're very good for diabetics. I think we planted it for my mum originally. In fact, I used to work at a health centre. I did my house job after qualifying at the London, which is where I studied, the London and Whitechapel, which of course now has merged with Barts and Queen Mary's. And so I did my house job there, and then I moved on to another top London hospital, but I was based in sort of a secondary care centre, which Princess Diana had opened with Prince Charles. God bless you, Princess Diana, wherever you are. And we had the Queen Mum come over because we had this beautiful hospital garden, and that had a fig tree, and there used to be figs. And it still brings me back to sort of looking at the reception area with a little basket of figs saying help yourself. And for the first time, I remember trying a fig because I used to be so scared of them. And I was like, my gosh, these are absolutely delicious. So then I went home, told my parents, and of course my dad is an avid gardener. So hence our fig tree. I think that's where possibly, I don't know, I think one of our family friends may have had a fig tree as well. But anyway, so then lo and behold, we have this gorgeous fig tree in our garden. So for as long as I can remember, we've had this sort of, I guess, a tradition of removing the figs. I mean, we've always had lots of fruit trees at home, from plums to apple trees to pear trees. My parents' garden is quite big, or it used to be certainly. And then we had, the house extended. I have no idea why I'm going into all this detail, but the garden used to be massive. In fact, I think the garden was a bit smaller, but it was still quite big when we had the fig tree. Anyhow, the point is, the fig tree is gorgeous, and it was a tradition to remove the figs. We had some at home, and we would share it out with the neighbours in the street, which is lovely. Everyone loved it. Everyone's like, oh, is it time for the fig trees, to be blooming? And, it's just so wonderful, and it's such a lovely neighbourly thing to do. So, of course, as the years have gone by, people have started behaving slightly oddly. And they would, of course, if the tree branches are extending over, that's absolutely fine. But people would be coming into our front garden, picking figs, asking for bags. And actually, we used to have berries as well in the front garden. And the same thing would happen, which I thought was really odd. I can remember my mother saying, pick as many as you want, but no, we're not going to give you a bag. So in any case, we've had the same thing with the fig tree, where people are asking for bags, for ladders. We're like, no, you can't do that. And please do not come into the front garden. If you want to pick figs, pick them from outside, but no, don't come onto our private property. Anyway, the other night we heard a sound. Actually, I didn't hear it because I wasn't there, but the family heard a sound, and there was a box being dragged and a ladder. And in the morning, we discovered that all the figs had disappeared. Yes, there were no more figs on the tree. Well, apart from the teeny tiny ones. And obviously the tree is quite tall. So our sort of available crop of figs was limited to those that we could sort of reach safely. And that's fine, because the birds would have the rest of the figs. But now there are no figs. So I mean, we've had a couple at home, but we can't give any to the neighbours, which is such a shame, because I know the neighbours, and some in particular, love figs. But I don't know. People behave so oddly, don't they? But what is it with people behaving badly? I just don't know. I mean, the funny thing is, now who said this? Somebody was saying, I read an article, somebody was saying essentially that as AI comes to the fore, it's going to be even more important to be able to communicate effectively. This, of course, is something that I do professionally, and I love it. I think it's so important that we communicate effectively, and that means with kindness, compassion, as well as using effective tools in the manner in which we communicate. And of course, if you're a business, this affects your revenue. If you are a personal brand, aren't we all these days, then obviously it affects the perception that people have of your brand. But even just for someone who says, okay, I'm not into any of this, it affects your personal relationships, from your parents to siblings to partners to children. It's super important. And I do feel that obviously as people increase in their screen time or are brought up with screen time, it makes it harder for them to actually, I guess, communicate effectively, just because they've not had the same experience, I guess. And, the thing is that we know that people never forget how you make them feel, and they may forgive you, but they won't forget. Incidentally, I read something about elephants the other day, that they're the only kind of animal, I think, that actually sheds tears over grief as well as, sort of emotional tears, which I think is beautiful. If you do want to contribute, please, to the welfare of elephants, please contact the World Wildlife Fund. They're really great. And there are loads of animal sanctuaries around the world as well. There's a guy that I follow actually on TikTok, and I think his name's Dr. Ali, but I'm not sure where he's based, to be honest. And the other day he was speaking German, and I was like, wow, he speaks German as well. He's Muslim, he's lovely. And if you're listening, Dr. Ali, why would you be listening to my podcast? But if you are, I love the work you do. He saves so many horses and dogs and animals, and I am confused about where he's based because I just can't tell where he is. And then, of course, he was speaking German, and I was like, I didn't imagine him to be speaking German. I don't know why. But I think, why am I saying all of this? I'm saying all of this because the world is erupting. We know that volcanoes are erupting. And I was just saying to a friend today who is abroad at the moment, and she was telling me that her friend's archaeologist husband was being lovely and showing them around, and it was so fascinating. And I said to her, gosh, do you know what, it makes city life feel so crass and vulgar. Those were my very words. And I just think that, if we look at the fact that people have come and gone, what is that one enduring quality? It's cooperation with others, which is due to kindness, compassion, and tolerance. That's it. That's the way we are meant to live. That's the key, really, to evolution and to growth of the human species. Not all this other rubbish that's happening, stealing people's land and, carrying out a genocide whilst being horribly manipulative. And, yes. So we will never forget. And Palestine is always in our hearts. And we don't forgive, actually, either. And we want freedom for the Palestinians. So until the next episode, let's all create connection. And let's not just change lives, but save lives. Help the Palestinians, help oppressed people everywhere, help oppressed animals as well. If you're in a country where animals are being oppressed, sign a petition, donate to rescue organisation, donate to Meals in Gaza, donate to Heal Palestine, which is a new amazing organisation led by the founder of the Palestinian Children Relief Fund. I didn't know about this, but a dear friend sent me the link to Heal Palestine. I'll put it in the show notes. So yes, let's make positive change in the world. Let's create connection, and let's not just change lives, but save lives.